Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Geek Public Radio. This is Jassel bringing you your criminal fix. Today we're going to talk about the story of Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsy Rose. If you enjoy this video, please be sure to like and subscribe for all of our content. And make sure you hit the bell so you never miss out.
Robbery has turned into a potentially explosive situation.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us here at Geek Public Radio. I have Crazy Chris with me here tonight. We're going to be talking about the story of Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsy Rose. So thanks for joining in with us. Thank you for joining me, Crazy Chris. Always appreciate your company.
Hey, I super enjoy this podcast. It's my favorite. I mean, it's definitely on the list of my top 5.
Well, like I said, we're going to be talking about Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsy Rose. We're going to start out talking about Dee Dee. So Dee Dee, Claudine Dee Dee Blanchard, she was born on May 3rd of 1967, and she was subsequently murdered on June 14th of 2015, and we're going to go through the nice little story in between there. So Dee Dee, in her younger years, she was a child that always got what she wanted. And if she didn't get what she wanted, she would make her parents pay. She would steal from them. She would steal from other family members. She had 4 siblings. And so she'd cause havoc because she didn't get her way. So she started out in her life being a rather controlling person.
She sounds really classy. I like her already. Can't wait to hear this story.
Well, she would have been arrested if she'd stayed in Louisiana. She left with Gypsy later on, but she had a bunch of credit card fraud. She would take out credit cards in family members' names and friends' names. And so she had credit card fraud.
Good God.
She had some bad checks written that they wanted her over. So it was mostly fraud. Like it seemed, and that seems to be a running thing for her. She did have, her mother and her father were separated, and he remarried. She was living with her mother when her mother deceased, and there is wide speculation throughout the family that she had something to do with it. They believe that she was withholding food from her mother. She pretty much starved her to death. There's no proof, but that is the suspicion throughout the family, that she had something to do with it, especially after everything that came to light after her death. They suspect her a little more.
Yeah, that's gross. Let's just, yeah, I can't, yeah. I love my ma. Love you, ma. Not that you'll ever watch these because these are not your
Not
style.
her thing,
but love you, ma.
So at the age of 24, she became pregnant with Gypsy Rose. And she was not married. And at that time,
with all this fraud, I just have a really quick question. Are we sure she was actually pregnant with Gypsy Rose? She didn't just go in there and steal the child from the hospital?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. All right. That's fair.
I mean, no one's asked that question that I can find.
That's a legit question at this point.
I mean, yeah, at this point, yeah, it definitely is. But
all right, go ahead. Sorry.
So she was 24 when she got pregnant. She was not married. And the boyfriend he said, in one of the documentaries, he was like, well, you did the manly thing and you stepped up to the plate and you married the woman. He was 17.
Wow.
So you can only assume that she probably used her manipulative tactics to seduce this kid.
Child.
Yeah.
You're a child.
You're still a child.
You can argue with me all you want. You're a child.
And so you can only assume that she did at least some sort of manipulation to maybe seduce him. Maybe there's no evidence to say otherwise, but she could have very well been like, I'm going to seduce this kid. I'm going to have him get me pregnant, and I'm going to make my life exactly what I want it to be, and it's going to start like this.
Right.
So there's no proof or evidence that says that that's what happened.
Right.
But, I mean, you hear her story, and it's pretty easy to suspect and think it very plausible.
Oh, certainly.
So around the time that he turned 18, he just kind of woke up one morning and was like, what am I doing? And they split up. This was
Good on him.
right.
Good
This
on
is
him.
this is shortly before Gypsy Rose was born. And like very shortly before Gypsy Rose was born. So,
I mean, I would never celebrate a father leaving their child, but at the same time, sometimes situations dictate you need to bounce.
yeah.
That sounds
You know,
like this is the case.
Sometimes it's just not the right thing. So
Correct.
you have to leave and move on, and everybody moves on. And
Right.
from all accounts that we can tell, she seems to have handled that fine. And Rod was his name, Rod Blanchard, and he stayed in Gypsy's life. He was an active father in her life. He paid child support, and he visited with her and all that. So Gypsy Rose, at this point, we're now in 1991,
Okay.
when Gypsy was born. So throughout her life, it was believed that she had many illnesses. I'm talking all kinds of illnesses. And we're going to start at the age of 3 months old, where her mother insisted that she had sleep apnea. She spent several nights in the hospital, several testings done overnight. I've had a sleep apnea test done. I'm not sure what it is for a baby, but it was no fun for me.
I'm sure it's uncomfortable.
So, yeah, tons of cables all over you. So she went through several overnight stays at the hospital, and everything came back negative. She didn't have sleep apnea, but she told Rod she has sleep apnea, and many others that she had sleep apnea, even though the doctor said, no, she doesn't. There's no account of her actually having sleep apnea.
Okay.
So soon followed was her claim that Gypsy Rose had vision impairment issues and some breathing issues, because we're going to play off of the
Sleep apnea.
sleep apnea, right?
Right.
So
Which apparently causes vision impairment.
not last I checked. I'm pretty sure it's a separate thing that she was.
Oh, I thought Dee Dee was a certified PhD. I'm sorry.
Oh, no. She did do some nurse's aid type stuff at one point in her life, but I think she gathered just enough information in that time to really fly with it.
And this is pre-Google, so nobody could really call her on it.
This is true. And it got even harder to call her on it. We'll get to that. At the age of 8, her mother claimed that she had leukemia, muscular dystrophy, claiming that she needed a wheelchair and a feeding tube because of these conditions.
Wow.
Further diagnoses that would be added to Gypsy Rose's list were asthma, the hearing and visual impairments, seizures, paralyzed from the waist down, and she also claimed that Gypsy Rose had a mental retardation. So she was mentally stunted, emotionally stunted.
Good freaking grief.
Well, Hurricane Katrina happened.
Okay.
And they're down at the Gulf Coast of Louisiana. And at the time, they were living in an apartment with government assistance. It was public housing. And, bills were being paid from Rod's child support and the government assistance that she was getting because of Gypsy Rose's conditions. So August 2005, who can forget Katrina, right? So they...
And Gypsy's 14 at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. She would be,
13, 14.
13, 14 at this point. She's... So they moved to Missouri because their apartment was totaled.
Okay.
So they moved to Missouri with stating they wanted to rebuild a better and new life together.
One without leukemia or muscular dystrophy.
No, that followed her.
Oh, okay.
The diagnoses follow, right?
Okay.
So because of Gypsy's conditions, she was a single mom. She told people that Rod was an abusive father, that he was a drug addict and an alcoholic, which he was none of these. He was actually a very good father. He was not a drug addict. He was not an alcoholic.
Like, he's not a deadbeat by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Okay.
By all accounts, he He paid his child support. He stayed in contact with her. He tried to visit her, but Dee Dee would always kind of get in the way. Like, oh, well, she has to go here for these tests, and we had to change plans because of this. And so it would always make it so that he never actually got up to Missouri to visit.
Got it.
Because he remarried, and they wanted to go see her, right?
Right.
So people, when they moved to Missouri, were just, let me help you. I can't. Oh, you poor thing. You're a single mom, and this has to be so much work for you. I mean, she has all these problems and conditions you have to keep up with and medicate. And so they pitied her. They sympathized, and they helped her out as much as they could. And they received all kinds of free things from friends and family, from government, from nonprofit organizations.
Good God.
So, all kinds of. So, of course, by this point, if you haven't figured it out already, Dee Dee suffers from Munchausen syndrome.
Munchausen syndrome?
Yes, by
Gotcha.
proxy. A short little background of the disease or disorder, whatever you want to refer to it as. It is 100%, absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, child abuse.
Yeah.
Via manipulation, via neglect, and sometimes there's actual, physical child abuse. Clearly there's emotional abuse, but sometimes it also is physical abuse, which unfortunately for Gypsy was also the case for her.
Right. And then there's Munchausen by proxy right there. So caregiver makes up or causes an illness or injury to a person under his or her care, such as a child and an elderly adult, or a person with disability, because vulnerable people are the victims. MSBP is a form of child abuse or elder abuse. So, yeah, that is...
Most often, it is somebody that does not have the ability to speak for themselves, stand up for themselves. Most often you do see it with a parent and a child.
Yeah.
That's the most common time that you see it. Obviously it's neglecting, and they're doing this for their own, I guess, perverse way of getting attention. Whatever that attention may be, it's their way of getting that attention. So when they moved, of course, when they saw new doctors, Katrina happened. So all their records were lost. Lost.
Oh, my God.
So,
Okay.
of course, with all those records lost, including supposedly her birth certificate, but she did actually keep her legitimate birth certificate, which was found in the house. But Gypsy was 10 in 2001, right?
Right.
But at that time, she was telling everybody that Gypsy was 8. She was making her younger. And she would do this again in the future. She would lie about her age to make her younger, because when she was younger, she would get more support, more attention.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is before, obviously, they left Louisiana, because we're talking 2001, right? And so even at the age of 8, she was named the honorary queen of the Krewe of Mid-City, which is apparently a children's parade that happens during Mardi Gras. So she was the honorary queen for that,
Wow.
which she got because of her illnesses that she didn't have. So at one point, before they left Louisiana, sorry, I'm jumping a little bit on the timeline here.
No, it's okay.
Before they left Louisiana, they did move in with Dee Dee's father and stepmother, very briefly.
Right.
Now, during that time, the father and the stepmother were kind of questioning Gypsy's illnesses and, what was going on. But they're not doctors. They're not nurses. They
Sure.
don't know.
Right.
So,
They're
and
just-
again, no Google.
Right. Well, I mean,
2001. Yeah, but still, it wasn't like
But
in everybody's home. It was just in a lot of homes.
Yeah, and then what jerk is going to say, "Oh, your daughter doesn't have leukemia"? I mean, that's legitimately, that's what it is. It's the sympathy by nature where
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to call them out because what are they gonna say? Yes, they do, and they're gonna argue with you, and you don't have any
Right.
proof.
Exactly.
So it's just suspicion versus word, and it's losing fight. Anyways,
Well, during this time that they were living there, her stepmother got very sick. Couldn't figure out why. She was just very sick.
oh my God, I know. Pick me. I bet I know. Oh my God, I bet I can pick me.
You want to take a stab?
I want to take a stab at it. She caught malaria from an infected pustule on the shoe of a visitor that happened to fly in from Hanover, Michigan. And that's what happened, right?
That's very detailed. Not quite. They couldn't really prove what happened, but when Dee Dee and Gypsy moved away to Missouri, she got better.
That was my next guess.
Come to find out, she was being poisoned
Wow.
with weed killer being put in her food.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, why? Was it? I mean, the only thing I can think of is, was it because they were questioning her? They were questioning what was going on with Gypsy, so let's distract them by making her sick?
I actually have a feeling where it needs to, she's the only woman that deserves to be the center of attention.
That makes sense.
Which is why, because to piggyback on what you said, I believe if it had to do with questioning, I think both of them would have been getting sick as opposed to just the woman being sick. So I have a feeling it was more along the lines of a vanity thing where it's, you don't deserve to be alive. I'm the only woman in anybody's life ever, and my dad should pay attention to me and not you.
And I can't say for certain, but I would not be the least bit surprised if she had a bit of narcissistic personality disorder
Very
stuff
possible.
going on.
Sure.
So,
That's a pretty fair logical leap.
but after leaving there, of course, she got better. I mean, I don't think that's a coincidence, but
Not even a little bit.
Most people don't. But nothing could be proven. I mean, it's the same thing like she's with her potentially starving her mother.
Right.
Can't prove it. So they didn't have any evidence to really say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. This is how, for whatever reason, I don't know if they didn't do an autopsy or what, because I feel like malnutrition and starving to death would show up in an autopsy. Now, I'm not 100% sure on that.
It depends on, nowadays, yeah, they probably would have ordered an autopsy.
But back in the 90s.
Yeah, but depending on the degradation of
Or even the 80s.
Yeah, it really just kind of depends on the circumstances surrounding the death.
Mm-hmm.
And if Dee Dee was the surviving child and the heir apparent to the estate, she's the only one with the legal authority to order said autopsy unless the DA were to determine that it was under
she does have
suspicious
4
circumstances.
siblings.
Is Dee Dee the oldest?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I
So
did not think
might
to look
might
that
play
up.
into it. No, that's fair.
I
That might
apologize.
No, that might play into it. That's something. Hey, guys, down there in the comment section below, look that up for us. Tell us, was she the oldest? And maybe somebody else has some kind of outlook.
If I
on
had
it.
to take a guess, I would either say that she was the oldest and got jealous as siblings were born, or she was the youngest and just wanted all of the attention.
Either one of those is plausible.
I mean, it could be, a middle child thing where they don't feel like they're getting any attention, that the oldest and the youngest are getting it. So, the middle
Sure.
child thing. It really could be any of them. But I feel like maybe oldest or youngest is probably more plausible. But like I said, I did not even think to look up what order she was born in.
Well, it's just fair. She's a piece of crap. So, the less attention she gets, the better.
Except we're giving her attention right now, right?
She's dead, so really irrelevant.
A little different, yeah. So after leaving her parents' home, this was when she moved into the public housing that got destroyed in Katrina.
Right.
So so Rod was aware of all these illnesses, but of course he didn't know enough to really question anything. He just took Dee Dee at her word.
Excuse me.
And I'm trying to think of if I was a father separated from the mother, that I would probably take her at her word, especially when I'm seeing my child in the manner that Dee Dee presented her.
So I have a little bit of insight. I know we've kind of tangented a little bit, and it's a bit off topic, but I do have some insight when that occurs, especially in that circumstance. Beg your pardon, guys. Sorry. Especially in that circumstance, his rights to what's happening with Gypsy Rose and his access to her medical and stuff like that, that's severely limited, especially if he's paying child support, which means that he probably did not have any type of custody or custodial arrangement with the court, and even back then in the 2000s. So he really didn't have a lot of choice in the matter. He may have suspected, but unless he drags her to court, which she's not going to pay for, then he would have to cover. Can't. Yeah, and he would have to cover all those costs. Right.
He's an average guy. He's not, rolling in dough. So.
Exactly. So he probably may have suspected something, but it would have been much easier just to assume that the mother of your child's not going to lie to you.
Well, and looking back, he can say, well, that was probably a red flag. I should have seen something. And he does feel guilty for that.
I'm sure he does.
And so, and understandably so, I would too.
But she's also keeping him away.
She kept him away. So there's really not anything that he could do. He was very limited, and just like everybody else, falling to the manipulation of Dee Dee.
Sure.
And all of her lies, which she had many. So what happened was Dee Dee just kind of kept moving her a little bit further away from her dad until they got to Missouri.
Sure.
And then when they got to Missouri, not right away, but things that she ended up getting included a house, a brand new house. Built Habitat for Humanity.
Wow.
So she's now conning her whole family, the government, and
I can't wait to go
Humanity.
home and tell my children all these symptoms and illnesses they have, so I can get a free house too. Can I get a car and a house and
yeah? I don't think she got a car.
New studio.
But they did get trips to Disney, which
love you. Jennifer.
People that knew Gypsy will say that she loved Disney. She loved the Disney princess stories. But
awesome.
I mean, when you look at it though, she was trapped in her own little thing, looking for her own happy ending, and so she had her own wicked mother. She had her own wicked stepmother. Only it wasn't her stepmother; it was her mother.
It's gross. It's just gross.
But it was. When you see the house, it's this really cute, pretty pink. Because they made it mostly for Gypsy.
Wow.
They gave a ramp so that she could get her power chair into the house. They made sure that the house was designed for her chair to move around freely in. So this was a very specially designed home, specifically built for them by Habitat for Humanity. She's been on stage for the Leukemia Society foundations and all of that.
I'm familiar with her story. I'm actually familiar with this story.
They have lots of publicity. So when everything ended up where it did, anybody that knew her story at all was like, I'm sorry, what?
She did who to what now?
Yeah, exactly. And then they're like, okay, well, wait, so what's true and what isn't?
Right.
And Gypsy doesn't even know. Because she's been lied to her whole life. She's been told all of these, you have these things and you have this issue, so this is why we do this, and this is.
That's
a pure identity crisis from day one that you never get out of until something happens.
Yeah, that's
that gets you out of
dissociative
it.
identity disorder if I've ever heard it. Right there, bang.
Yeah,
you're done.
You're done. Yes. Of course, so. As we've already discovered, these things are false. But they still got their trips to Disney. They still had their government assistant, backstage passes to concerts. When they moved to Missouri, by the way, they got a free air flight. They got airlifted to Missouri from Louisiana. They got a very special ride because of her circumstances. I'm
I'm less angry at the generosity of strangers. That's actually uplifting to me.
Yes.
The fact that people were willing to do that is awesome.
But it's like the bad apple of the bunch.
Right.
How do you know who's telling the truth now?
It was the one exactly. They just
if
ruined it.
looking back, I mean, you can go, okay, well, we can learn from this, and let's start looking for this, and this.
Right.
So, so Dee Dee pretty much raised her daughter, trained her to be disabled. She was just like, okay, so you have to remember you can't walk. When the doctor examines you, you don't feel anything. You don't move your legs, nothing. That's how she played out paralyzed.
It's brainwashing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So don't move your legs. You need to talk like this because they needed to put on the act of that she was
Developmentally disabled.
Yes, developmentally disabled. So she even told Gypsy, well, because of your treatments, you're going to lose your hair. So we're just going to keep it shaved so that it's nice and neat. And she got her a bunch of wigs. So she was wearing, wigs or hats or whatever. I mean, you would see her without either of those. But she would have, all kinds of wig options. And of course, she loved her Disney. So she'd like to cosplay as the princesses and all that good stuff. So that was when she was arrested.
Yeah, I keep going, keep going, because I'm the more I hear, I know the story, but the more I hear, I'm like, God, I can't wait for the end.
So she would even go as far as putting a numbing agent on her gums before she would go into doctor's offices, so she would drool. It's kind of hard to command a kid to drool, so she made her drool. Yes. It's even without the other stuff that we're going to get into, that, in my opinion, is physical abuse. You're purposefully putting an agent that shouldn't be there on her gums to warrant a specific response. Now, it wasn't necessarily torturous for her. It wasn't painful for her.
But it's embarrassing.
But it's still, it's not okay.
Right.
So, because of the drooling, she ended up getting Botox to her salivary glands, and then they eventually got removed. Wow. That is among many of the treatments and surgeries and crap that her mother put her through. That's really the best way that I could put it, is just like crap.
I mean, there's other words that we could use, but we try to keep the language PG on this show.
Yes.
Yeah.
So because of the drugs that her mother gave her, she had damaged teeth, specifically because of the seizure medication. It damaged her teeth. So she ended up having a lot of dental issues. And those were brought on naturally by the things that she was having her daughter do and the medications that she was feeding her daughter. Now, like I said, she had a feeding tube. So if she would just trust her mother. I mean, it's your mom. You're going to trust that she's doing the right thing.
Well, she's been doing this since she was 3 months old.
Yeah, so this is what she knows. And so, she's just like, okay, well, my mom knows best because she's my mom and she loves me. I mean, that's what any kid would think, right? And so she would just take the medications like her mother told her to. And if it wasn't something that she would orally take, it would go through her feeding tube. And that's how she ate. Her mother kept her malnourished because of that feeding tube, so that she would look sick.
Words escape me.
Yeah, so, I mean, she had treatments, she had surgeries, she had medications, all of which she didn't need any of. Not a single one. Dee Dee would do all the talking at her doctor appointments. In a lot of videos, you can see them holding hands. Later to find out that this hand holding was her mother's way of saying, okay, you're talking too much. You need to shut up. You're saying the wrong things. You need to stop talking. So it was like her little silent signal that she needs to stop talking. She needs to reel it back into her act that she's supposed to be putting on. But to Gypsy, she's a child. This is all normal to her. This is what she knows. So she did it. Her mother had her manipulated just like she did, pretty much everybody else. Now, like I said, she would tell her, sit still, don't move your arms, just here, play with this doll, play with this stuffed animal, don't talk, I'll do all the talking. So her mother did all the talking at all of her appointments. Now, her manipulation tactics and skills were so good that she manipulated many doctors.
Medical professionals
into believing that she had things that she did not have. She would know exactly what she was going into. And like I said, her records were lost in Katrina. They probably weren't. But she would go to these doctor's appointments, and because those records were lost, the doctors would have to just take her mother at her word. So she'd say, oh, well, she has this, she has this, she has this. And some of them would just write it down and accept it and not test it to make sure that that was accurate. Because...
I mean, at what point do the doctors become liable? Right? Well... That's kind of my question. I know there's much more to this, but at what point does the doctor say, I know this is what the record, what you say the records are. I would like to test her blood. I would like to have confirmation.
Yeah, I'd like to have my own test records.
Right, we'd like to have and keep our own records.
Exactly.
Any doctor that would just take somebody at their word without doing any testing is an idiot.
Like I said, but she's putting on an act. They're both putting on an act, and she played the role well because her mother conditioned her so hard and so well.
It's gross.
That she didn't know any different. So, of course, she looked believable because she would come into the doctor's office in a wheelchair. Oh, you're touching my leg? I can't feel that. But she would have some reflex responses because she had feeling in her legs. She had use of her legs. But we contribute that to the MS. That she still, can move. She can still kind of use them, but, because of the MS, she really shouldn't. She falls, this, that.
And, of course, over time, they'll atrophy.
Oh, yes. You'd think that they would. But because she's not actually paralyzed, and she can walk around, and she would walk around when she was home and no one was looking.
Oh, my God.
So there was one doctor that's well noted in their story. It's Bernardo Flasterstein. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. But it was Dr. Bernardo Flasterstein. He was a pediatric neurologist who did order tests, who looked at the MRI.
Attaboy.
That noticed that for somebody that can't walk, she has an awful lot of,
muscle mass
in there that she wouldn't have. She would have more atrophy than she did, but she didn't. And so he questioned it. And when he saw the MRI came back fine. And so he actually he even wrote in one of his reports that her mother is not a historian. At least not an accurate one. So
that's awesome.
He noted all of this. He noted everything that he saw that, and he suspected that there was the Munchausen syndrome.
Right.
I always get tongue twisted over that. So he suspected it. He reported it to CBS, but nothing ever came of it. People would go out to their house, and Dee Dee would play them. People would give anonymous tips, and the cops would go out there to make sure everything, do a wellness check, make sure everything's okay. And she played them. She'd have Gypsy stay in her room, and she would manipulate them until they left.
Gross.
Yeah.
I repeat, gross.
So, when she would go to these specialists, because she went to so many specialists. So say she went to like a leukemia specialist.
Right.
Well, the family history when you went to that doctor was oh, we have a bunch of cancer in this history. This person had cancer, and this person had cancer.
Sure.
This person died of cancer. So they have a huge family history, false family history of cancer. But of course, you have to take them at their word. You can't pull up everybody in the family's medical records to find out if that's true. You generally take genetics at their word.
Did her mother die of cancer all of a sudden?
No. No, but with like cardiologists, for instance, you'd go to a cardiologist and all of a sudden now they have family members that are dying from heart failure and having other heart disease.
So she was lying about the history of her.
She was lying about the
historical
family of the family, or lying about the history of the family, excuse me. Lying about Gypsy's history, her own history, and even Gypsy's age. Because when Gypsy was younger, she'd get more.
Good God, dude.
She even had a fake birth certificate that showed that she was younger than she is. She had falsified documents. That's a legal document. You're falsifying.
She falsified a legal document.
Yes.
So the document itself, I've said this before, if it is from and or stamped by a federal agency, it's no longer falsified. It's just wrong. It's not false because the government says it's this.
Well, except the government didn't say that. She had the documents made. I mean,
kind of falls on them to be like, let me check this social really quick. Oh, that's wrong.
Well, I mean, even Gypsy at a couple times had seen, she'd go to the doctor's office and she'd see her correct birthday because she was even confused on how old she was.
Good God.
And she would see the correct birth date and her mother would be like, oh, it's just a misprint. They just put it in wrong. Because it'd be the right date, the right month, the right day.
Right.
It would be the wrong year. So whenever she would go to a doctor's office and she wouldn't get the results that she wanted, the diagnoses that she was looking for, she'd just cart on over to a new doctor. And she didn't have any of the doctors talking to each other. Not one.
So different medical facilities with completely different
facilities,
records.
And this was before they really networked a lot of our medical records and whatnot.
Right.
So, I mean, and even then when you network the medical records, unless you're within the same like hospital family, you're not going to see those records without consent.
Right.
So
HIPAA.
Right.
Yep.
So like, for instance, I've had to get some second opinions and whatnot, and I wanted a clean slate opinion. That's the only time I didn't share my records with a doctor because I wanted her blank, straight from nothing. What is your opinion without any prejudice from any other doctors?
Sure.
Because I wanted to make sure I was getting her opinion and only her opinion.
Which is fine.
Yeah. And now that she's given me answers, I have no problem with any of my doctors communicating with each other because I'm not lying.
Right.
I'm not making things up. But when you're making things up, you can't be doing that.
Right.
You're getting caught.
You have to keep a lid on some stuff.
Yeah, your family history will be seen in one chart going, wait a minute.
All right. So
I thought they died from a heart attack and now they're dying from cancer.
Right. And so Gypsy's what, 15, like legitimately 15, 16 years old at this point?
At the
all the
time that they
doctors?
moved into Missouri, she was
14.
13, 14.
Okay.
But I mean, this spans over years.
Right.
So, but like I said, there was that one doctor that called him out, turned him in, but nothing ever came of it.
Finkelstein.
Flasterstein.
Got it.
Bernardo Flasterstein. Yeah, he's like I said, he's a pediatric neurologist. So he specialized in specifically in things like finding MS and other neurological disorders that Dee Dee claimed that she had, but she just didn't have.
Right.
So in 2011, so now at this point we are 20. Well, we're not. She is. And she ran away. Gypsy ran away for the first time. Yeah.
On her crippled legs?
Well, what happened was she went to a convention, and at this convention, she met somebody, and they talked online, and this guy was like, wait a minute, what is happening? Because she told him what was going on.
Sure.
And he was like, that's messed up. That's not okay. Pack your stuff and
Come here.
come live here with me because that's just not okay. You need to get away from that.
Okay.
So whatever his true intentions were, I don't know. But at a minimum, to her, he was trying to get her away from the situation.
White knighting. He was white knighting.
Exactly. Which he very well could have been innocent white knighting. And had she successfully run away, then maybe she could have started living a normal life away from her mom. But
from Gypsy's perspective, that's her Prince Charming.
Yes.
He's saving
her
her
literal
from the
Prince Charming.
terrible dragon.
She's been looking for her Prince Charming, and here he is.
Yep. Rides on and rides
Your
on
knight in
white
shining
steed.
armor with the shiny metal and the sharp blade and the
But we will soon discover
shield.
he's no
And-
Kaisa.
Well, what ended up happening was he lived in Arkansas. So what ended up happening was about 4 hours after she ran away, Dee Dee caught up with her because
Wow.
there were people in common, people talking, what's happening. This is, Dee Dee's Gypsy's missing, blah, blah, blah. So she catches up with her. She finds them and she shows this guy the fake birth certificate saying she's not as old as she's telling you. Look, she's under 18. And if you don't let me take her home,
I'll have you arrested.
I'll have you arrested. Where in reality, she was 20. She was very capable of being like, I'm out.
Right.
But she couldn't. Her mother had her so under wraps. So because of this slip up, I guess we could say in Dee Dee's words, this slip up that happened, she gets home and she smashes Gypsy's computer with a hammer. And then she tells Gypsy, if you ever try that again, I will smash your hands with a hammer. So, of course, she's now terrified.
Dee Dee is a sweet lady.
Oh,
How
just
dare
the
you
best.
besmirch her wonderful name?
I mean, there was some pageant thing that she won. I
Slash
forget. I meant to write
S.
it down and I didn't. But she won some pageant thing even at one point. But she wanted the attention. I feel like, I know a lot of narcissists, but they aren't like her. She's a different kind of narcissist from anything I've ever encountered.
I mean, human garbage pile comes to mind.
Yeah, it sounds accurate too. So after hitching the ride, running away with this guy, come back home, smash computer. Now Dee Dee has her online activity more under wraps.
Right.
But she was 20. She was butting into a woman, even though her mother was trying to stunt that as much as humanly possible. And so when her mom would fall asleep, she'd go on the computer, and she had profiles online with dating sites and chat rooms and social media that her mom didn't know about.
Got it.
So that she could get away with, meeting other people. And that is how she ended up meeting Nicholas Godgen,
Okay.
who is from Wisconsin. So she found him on a Christian dating site. Now, yeah, that's them right there.
Oh, look at that sweet little Christian boy.
Yes, very young.
There's no way anything nefarious ever crosses his mind.
Well, they started chatting, and about 4 days into their chatting, they decided they're in a relationship.
Aw.
So they have this
Young
online
love.
relationship, and they haven't really met in person, and it's about a year later. But I mean, Nick had his own set of issues. It was like two really bad stories colliding to make
One worse.
one bad story really bad. So he claims he had multiple personality disorder, but at the time that he made this claim, he had not been diagnosed with that.
Okay.
He admits to not being diagnosed with that. He just thought that he had it.
Okay.
He was diagnosed with Asperger's.
Okay.
And he did have his own developmental issues. He was even arrested for public indecency. because he was watching porn in a McDonald's. Like I said, he had his own issues. He was arrested for that. Come to find out, he was apparently at that McDonald's, by the way, for 9 hours. Maybe he hit his screen well. I don't know.
We go to McDonald's for a double quarter pounder, not to watch you pound your double quarter.
Oh my God.
That's gross.
I should kick you out.
Sorry.
So
there are other people in the studio trying not to laugh really hard right now.
Well, Gypsy and Nick wanted to make their relationship known. Like I said, this is about a year later. So at this point, she has started to disclose to him that all these issues that she has are not real.
Right.
Because at this point, she's definitely old enough to know this isn't real. Like, some of it might be real, maybe it is, but I can walk. She's telling everybody I can't walk.
Right.
So, I mean, at least that's not real.
Now, at this point, I'm assuming she doesn't have a feeding tube anymore.
I don't know when she loses the feeding tube.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know.
Because I'm looking at the picture that we brought up, and there's clearly
it's not always
visible.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fair. Okay, you know what?
it.
Yeah, because you can actually get that different. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay, never mind.
It can be hidden. So Gypsy arranges for Nick to come down to Missouri.
Not a far trip.
And they're going to see Cinderella, the live action.
Nice.
With the really tiny waist and the big blue dress.
Right.
That one. So they're going to the theater to see it, and they concoct this plan that, okay, well, we're going to just kind of casually bump into each other at the theater.
Sure.
And that's how our relationship started, and therefore Mom's met you, so she'll be okay with it. So Gypsy,
she was so naive, but not.
well, but not, because this is the first time they'd seen each other in person. Okay.
Sure.
Gypsy took him to the men's bathroom of the theater.
Oh.
Where she lost her virginity to him.
In the bathroom?
In the bathroom of a movie theater. I think she was just so desperate to be her own person and to be free that, and then, and during that year, I mean, they're talking. Yes.
Of the theater?
I mean, I'm sure you know people that have done it in worse places.
But it's gross. Why
I'm
would
not
you
saying
do
it's
that?
not. I mean, yes, it is, because
I don't.
bathrooms, I mean.
You're a disgusting person if you do that. I'm judging you. Go ahead.
So that didn't really pan out, the whole meeting thing. I mean, they casually met, but her mom was like,
okay.
yeah, Mom was like, what man comes and watches a movie like Cinderella by himself?
I mean, I would have had the same thought, to be quite honest with you.
I mean, he was sus from that point to Mom.
Did you just suss? You
I
sussed.
did.
Oh my goodness, you're not allowed to hang out with the kids anymore.
Too bad. So she obviously was just like, no, there's something off here. There's something off with him. I mean, she wasn't necessarily wrong, but
sure.
she was like, no, there's something off, because generally speaking, a grown man doesn't go to the movie theater to watch what is theoretically a kid's or at best chick movie.
I mean, I knew a lot of 34-year-old women who were screaming about a 17-year-old Jacob in the Twilight series. So I guess if it's not weird one way.
I mean, yeah.
Judging y'all too.
You're full of judging today, huh? Mm-hmm. So while they're chatting, this is before they met. So this is how her budding sexuality is coming into play.
Sure.
She doesn't really know a whole lot. He tells her, yeah, I'm really into BDSM. She has no idea what that is.
Sure.
So of course, got to Google it. So she Googles it, and she's like,
Nope.
I don't know about this. This doesn't sound like something. And he was like, oh, no. So he kind of got her comfortable with it, and she knew about his multiple personalities. I don't know if that's real or not, but she knew about his multiple personalities, and she would create these characters, these
personas.
These personas to match whatever persona he was giving her. So she had this really sweet, innocent persona where she would wear her pretty princess dress and her pretty curls and all that. And then she would have like this,
Good God.
this naughty one where she would dress up as, she had one that she was dressed up as Harley Quinn.
Okay.
She had another one where she posed for him with a wig on and what appears to be a leather jacket, unzipped, so you can see a little bit of cleavage.
Sure.
And then the bear in between. And so she was sending him these photos, somewhat at his request, someone at, this is interesting, this is new, this is freedom.
Right.
So she's
Which is what
not
happens
necessarily
when you
comfortable.
lock somebody down and they start to get a taste of freedom. Some people explore it naturally. Some people explode and just freedom all over the place.
Yes. And they often get into a lot of trouble with that.
Yes, they do.
So at one point, one of Nick's exes contacts Gypsy and says, you know, hey, he's really a creep. He's bad news. You know, I'm not saying this because I'm his ex. I'm saying this because he's bad news and you really should just stay away from him. And he thinks he's a vampire. It's literally what she was told, was that he thinks he's a vampire and he's into all this weird stuff. And, you know, you really just, you should pretty much save yourself and not bother.
Go have your freedom, just not with the vampire kid that
she doesn't
use
know,
a dirty theater bathroom.
Which she doesn't really know Gypsy's story, though.
Sure.
So she doesn't know that she's held hostage by her mother. So, like I said, she'd be sending him these sexy role-playing photos to match whatever personality he was wanting that particular day.
He was portraying that day.
Exactly. And she didn't, I mean, look at her life. She doesn't know what a healthy relationship looks like. She doesn't know what real love looks like. Her mother sure as heck didn't show her real love. Because that's not love.
No.
And so she is completely clueless. She is out in the world with her own version of stunted growth forced upon her by her mother. She's got to figure things out on her own. And so she's trying to. And so she goes from one controlling situation to now she's in another controlling situation with a guy that's having her do things she's not necessarily comfortable with. Now, fortunately, like I said, this is long distance. So it was rather mild stuff versus what it could have been if he was local.
Physically present.
Yeah.
Sure.
So she has no basis of comparison for love. She has no basis of comparison for what a healthy relationship
The closest
looks like.
thing she ever came to was a dude that she thought was possibly a pedophile. Because her mother...
Well, no, she knew he wasn't because she at this point knew her
20?
age.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
She knew her age by this point.
Okay.
I mean, she was confused. She doubted herself. It was like gaslighting, right? So
sure.
She was like, well, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I am really maybe I'm really only 17. Maybe I really am only 15.
Sure.
You know.
Okay.
So she does. I mean, have her own self doubts, but it's just I can't imagine it.
No, it's completely and totally grotesque. From any imaginable angle that you view this, it's disgusting. It is completely and totally immoral, abnormal, exploitative, manipulative, narcissistic. It's every possible negative trope that you could assign to Dee Dee Blanchard would be appropriately assigned. She's a horrific, monstrous waste of life.
Of a human being, yeah. So with this multiple personality disorder, they pretty much had an online relationship that was all role play.
Sure. Imagine just yeah.
Yeah, it was all imaginary. Because she was pretending to be somebody that she's not, like she has been her whole life, and he was one of his personalities, supposedly. So, I mean, I definitely believe that he had issues outside of Asperger's because some of the things that he was doing and saying and part of it doesn't fall under that. So,
Right.
I mean, not generally speaking, you know. So at this point, she's now met Nick in person. They've had this whole year-long online relationship, and she's just like, I want out. I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I want to be free. I've had my taste of freedom in a movie theater bathroom and online with the constant online role play. I've had my taste of freedom, and I want it all. I want away. I can't stay here anymore. I don't want to be here anymore. Help me get out. So they had talked about, you know, how would she leave? Now she had two plans. Either mom would die, or she was going to have Nick get her pregnant to pretty much force Dee Dee to accept Nick and allow them to be together.
Which wouldn't have worked.
No, it wouldn't have worked, because I tell you what,
yep.
The second that Dee Dee would have found out that she was pregnant, whether she was faking said pregnancy or not, the child would have had an abortion.
Guarantee it.
Guaranteed. Dee Dee would have most definitely been like, my daughter's sick and she really shouldn't be having a child, and you know the baby's going to end up being sick, and it's really just, it's best for the baby.
Yeah. Or the baby's born,
and then she pushes her syndrome onto
the baby, and
her granddaughter or
and then at that point, now all of a sudden, Gypsy mysteriously dies.
Potentially.
Because she's been sick her whole life. It wouldn't be that strange.
No, she could have died in childbirth.
Yep.
Or soon after.
Yep. Postpartum.
I mean,
any number of
I don't
things,
know
and then
happened.
the cycle would have just continued
Yes.
with the new baby.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a very plausible situation.
But I mean, that's where my brain instantly went.
So, of course, like I said, they had talked about it. Now, Nick claims he didn't know anything about the pregnancy plan. He only knew about the murder plan. So they didn't really hash out big details
Sure.
here. But Nick came down from Wisconsin. Gypsy got him down here. She got a hold of money, funded his trip down. And meanwhile, they're talking online, they're texting, and Nick shows up, and she says to him, there's gloves and a knife outside, and the door's unlocked. The screen door squeaks, so only open it enough to get inside and then close it quietly. And she waited until Dee Dee had fallen asleep. Now, when he got there, he let Gypsy know that he was there, and said, you know, he said, go into the bathroom, cover your ears, and, you know, I'll take care of everything, kind of a thing. Right. And her response is like, when you see the text messages, it's, yes, sir. She yes sir'd him. Yes, sir. I'll do that, sir. She went into the bathroom. She laid in the fetal position. She covered her ears. She heard a little bit of a ruckus, and then nothing. And then they left. They cleaned up a little bit, and they took about $4,000 to $5,000 in cash, and out the door.
Okay.
That's a lot of money. I don't have that kind of cash.
Yeah,
laying
like
around. And considering everything, I mean, she got money from everybody.
Yeah, I was going to say
she
that's
probably
not really
didn't put
that
it in a
unusual,
bank.
I guess.
You can't track cash.
Yep. All right.
So
Dee Dee gets the axe or knife in this case.
She got the knife, and she got it 17 times in the back. He did not go easy at all.
I mean,
I guess he wanted to make sure the job was done.
I suppose. This is not me condoning murder. But there's like a brutal sense of satisfaction. Like it's almost like that. This person can't hurt anybody
Anymore.
ever again.
Well,
that's not the way it should be handled.
There was talk.
Yeah.
In the midst of all of this, supposedly, Nick said to Gypsy, well, we're going to do this my way, and I'm going to rape your mom. And she pleaded with him not to, and said, rape me instead. Which, I mean, at that point,
right.
is it, I mean,
Yes,
you could
it's
argue
still-
it
yes,
is.
it is.
Yes, it is. You could argue it is. You could argue it isn't. But what really makes it, yes, it was he was, and she was just like, no, stop, please stop. Like, she begged for him to stop, and he didn't stop. So at that point right there, whether it was
I get
consensual
it. Yeah.
rape or whatever you want to call it, or not, it's flat out rape
Yeah.
at that point.
No is no.
Yeah, no is no. Very simple.
Right.
It's a very simple word. A lot of us, it's one of the first words we use.
Yeah. So. Yeah, he's scumbag.
Yeah, no, he is not good people.
Nope.
So after they cleaned everything up, of course, they ran away. They stayed at a hotel for a few days outside of Springfield while they figured out what they were going to do next. And they ended up getting a Greyhound bus and going back to his parents' house where he lived. His mother and stepfather, I believe it was. His mom and stepdad. They knew a little bit of Gypsy's story, and they were perfectly fine with her coming and living with them.
Sure.
So they knew that she had some health issues and that she needed to get away from her mom and that they loved each other. And so, of course, they were going, okay, well, he's got this lovely young girl. You know, she's got some problems and so does he, but we can help them.
Right.
So I feel like they had good intentions. And when you watch their interrogation, well, they're not really getting interrogated, but they're questioning.
Their interview.
Yeah, their interview. Thank you. When you watch their interviews, there's a lot of, I'm sorry, what? Like, she's not disabled. She's not this. What happened? Were you aware that mail was sent to your house from Missouri addressed to your son? No. She says, well, we found mail in the house when we went through it, when we searched it, and we found something addressed to him. And when we opened it, it was the murder weapon and the gloves.
So
with blood on them.
So Gypsy sent them back to the house.
They mailed them back to the house so they wouldn't be caught with them. They didn't really know what else to do with them. So they were like, oh, well, we'll just mail them to the house. So that way, if people catch up to us, they're not going to find them on us. So we'll mail it to the house. Now, of course, Dee Dee is found. Okay, so they find Dee Dee's body, and everybody thinks Gypsy is sick, and Gypsy's missing.
Right.
Where is Gypsy? So now we're on an all-out hunt because, well, she could be in danger. She's
Disabled.
She's sick. She's disabled. She's very much so at risk and vulnerable. So we got to find her. Is she dead? They held candlelight vigils. They did a GoFundMe to pay for Dee Dee's funeral. Like all kinds of stuff because they didn't know anything yet. They still thought that it was this lovely mother with her sick daughter, that she was murdered and now Gypsy's missing.
God, even when she was dead, people...
I mean, didn't last very long because, I mean, you can watch the interview of Gypsy and you can't tell if she's acting. You can't tell if she's lying. And at this point, that's all she's been trained to do all of her life.
Yeah.
Is to pretend. So they have no way of knowing, okay, well, she's walking. And the people see the news and they see her and they're like, wait a minute, she's walking? And people are just flabbergasted, like, what is happening? I thought she couldn't walk. And now she's walking and she's talking fine.
Now, are they blaming all of this on Nick?
No.
Gypsy admits to her role in it.
Gypsy admits to having a role in it. He says that she had more of a role than she did. Evidence says its own thing. And so the roles and the involvement are pretty clear to the cops. You know, because once they subpoena all the text messages and the online messages and then posts and all of that, I mean, even this is what alerted them to look for Dee Dee, by the way. The is dead. She posted that on Facebook. That the is dead. She's gone. And in the comments,
you can
I
say what the
stabbed her,
actual
blah blah blah.
you can say what the actual word is, but you've already dropped the R word, and that's gonna that gets an adult. I mean, all of that's gonna get an adult anyway.
Okay.
So you can say it. Yeah, go ahead and say it. It's a victory lap.
The bitch is dead.
Yeah, and that's what she was.
And she was.
Agreed.
So that's what sparked the okay. We got to check on Dee Dee.
Right.
Okay, now where's Gypsy? And who's hacking their Facebook account because they shared a Facebook account? Who's hacking their Facebook account, saying all these things like, "Yeah, I stabbed her," and this, that, and who is making these posts? Well, it was Gypsy and Nick. And there's even video of the two of them in their motel room laughing and having a good old time. Now, like I said, Gypsy doesn't know who she is, and she's finally got a taste of freedom. Yeah, her mom's dead, but she's finally got this taste of freedom that she wouldn't otherwise have.
At this point, I have to imagine there was a developed hatred for her mother.
Probably.
So there was a sense of relief and joy when it happened.
Well, it was that manipulated love. You know,
Yeah.
I hate them, but I've been so manipulated by them. I've been so controlled by them. It's that abusive relationship. It's the same as when you are in an abusive relationship with a significant other. You know, they dig their talons in, and you can grow to hate them, but their talons are still there.
Yeah.
And they can still pull you back until you find a way to get free.
I get it.
So, and she found her way, just probably not the best way. So, when they went through the Blanchard home, they found a closet full of all kinds of drugs, money, prescriptions, things that would make her sick, things that she didn't need to be taking, as they found out. Like, it was a huge, whoa, wait a minute. Why are we finding this closet, locked closet, mind you, of all of these medications? Like, where is she even getting these from? Like, they didn't even know where she could get them from. She had a stockpile. She had her own, like, little pharmacy in her home. It was like a pantry, only of evil. So it was XYZ drug that she put her on. She didn't need to be put on. Those were all in there. Some other stuff was in there. So that's when they found out that Gypsy was taking all these weird things that she probably shouldn't have been taking. So they're trying to figure out what's real and what isn't.
Right.
And so the cops are trying to figure out, okay, well, is Gypsy lying or is she telling the truth? What is the truth? She doesn't even know who she is. How are we going to find out answers? So they got to the basic answers of who did what, when, and how it was planned. And they, in her HBO documentary, she says, "This is my first time being honest, completely honest." So she continued to lie. Like, when she went through her trial and everything, she was lying to her dad. And then all of a sudden, her dad and her stepmom are at the trial, and they're seeing all these text messages and evidence that Gypsy was lying to them about. And her stepmom says that they saw her turn and look at them with this look of, like, fear of, I lied to them, and now they're finding out the truth. Now what? So she doesn't even know how to tell the truth because she's been lying her whole life. I mean, when you don't know the truth from lie, you don't know how to tell the truth. Now, all evidence suggests that say Rod had total custody, complete custody of Gypsy, that she would have otherwise been a completely normal child. No learning disabilities, excuse me. And they found out that because of those illnesses, she pretty much had forced learning disabilities because her mother took her out of school in the 2nd grade because she had all these illnesses. She couldn't attend regular school. And so she just homeschooled her. I'm losing a lot of quotes today. So that she homeschooled her, but of course she didn't homeschool her properly, and therefore she didn't learn. She was forcibly mentally stunted by her mother. So It ended up being that Gypsy pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. They originally were going to go for first-degree murder, which in Wisconsin carries the death penalty or life in prison. But because of the circumstances, they went ahead and said, okay, well, we'll let it be second-degree murder. And she went ahead and pleaded guilty for her involvement and taking that 2 decades of systematic abuse from her mother, taking that into consideration, they ended up giving her a minimum of 10 years that she has to serve. So she is eligible for parole in 2024 when she will be the age of 32. Now, Nick went ahead and went through the trial. They brought up all the evidence, and he ended up being found guilty of first-degree murder by the jury within 2 hours. They deliberated, and within 2 hours, it was 2019, by the way, by the time they finally got to his trial, and they found him guilty, and now he is serving life in prison. So in an interview with 2020, she is quoted saying, quote, "I feel like I'm more free in prison than with living with my mom because now I'm allowed to just live like a normal woman." That's what she said in her 2020 interview. So at this point,
insane.
we've now got 3 years before she's eligible for parole. And, being at that time 32, if she gets out, say with, some whatever restrictions they end up putting on her, but she gets out, her family is behind her. She has the support of her father, her stepmother, her grandparents. She has their support, which I'm hoping that when she does get out, that this will afford her an actual normal life. Because if they're going to take her in and teach her how normal life actually is, I'm sure it's going to be work. I mean, I can't imagine that being an easy job. I'm sure she's learning a lot in prison, about
I'm
being
sure
normal.
She is.
But once she gets out, she'll actually be able to be normal. And her family has her back on that.
I mean,
which I really applaud them for. It's not her fault. None of this is her fault. You could say that she had something to do with it, but this started before she was able to walk, talk, or stand up.
I can agree to that to a sense. I am firmly against complete absolution of guilt.
Which is why she still got the second-degree murder charge, and which is why she still got the minimum of 10 years. So she's getting reprimanded for her actions, but forgiven considering the circumstances to an extent.
I think what she planned and what she did is forgivable under the circumstances. I can agree to that.
It's not excusable.
Not excusable, but I can understand.
But it's...
I can understand that.
Yes.
I do get it.
Yes.
That's
and that's why they went kind of easy
situation
on her. First of all, she didn't do the actual killing. She just took part in the planning. And she was present. She didn't stop it. She could have stopped it. She hid evidence, so on and so forth. So she does have guilt. And had she been any normal Joe, or Jane, I guess, but had she been any normal person that didn't go through this 20 years of abuse, they would have put them in for first-degree murder, and they would have either gotten the death penalty or life in prison without parole.
Right.
Which is what he got. He got life in prison without parole. And I'm honestly, they had so much evidence against him. I'm really not sure why he didn't just enter a guilty plea, but maybe they didn't offer him any kind of incentive to do that. So he took his chance with the jury.
A lot of times when they offer you a plea deal, this is actually a misnomer of the justice system that people get wrong a lot. Often when they send you a plea deal, it has more to do with the fact that it's a slam dunk case, and they would rather not waste time or money versus a lack of evidence where they're just trying to, trick you into a conviction. That's not what they're doing. They're actually trying to tell you, hey, you're gonna rot if you don't take this plea deal. Yeah. So in this case, no plea deal was offered, probably because they wanted to throw the book at him. They wanted to make it a spectacle. It needed to be a big deal. People needed to see it.
Yeah, by making his a full on,
right.
Court.
He was made an example of.
He was made an example of that, and it brought everything to light very publicly.
And I think that's why they did it instead of
offering him plea.
So saying, hey, we'll give you a murder 2 with 25 years.
Well, she was asked in the HBO documentary. She was asked by the interviewer, are you glad your mother's dead? And she said, well, no. She said, I didn't want her dead. I just wanted to be free. She just wanted that freedom. She's glad that she's gone, but she's not glad that she's dead.
Right.
She wanted to get rid of her. She didn't necessarily want her to die, but that's what happened.
I mean, the boot could only crush you for so long before you cut off the foot that it's attached to.
I mean, exactly. That's exactly right. So, I mean, that's the 2 of them when they were arrested.
That's crazy. This entire story is interesting to me, and like I said, I knew the tail end of it. Like I knew who the boyfriend ended up killing the mother. I know that I didn't know like all these other
intricate
extra
details.
Like like obviously in the retrospect and stuff like that. Like I didn't realize he had all of these additional problems that contributed to this, and I don't know. The more you explained it, the more I realized that he is just as bad, if not presumably worse, than the mother, because he exploited this girl's innocence, and knowing her situation, he exploited her for his own personal gain. And
even after he learned the truth.
The anecdote that you brought up regarding after the fact, after he murdered her or before, and said he wanted to do XYZ thing, that right there, like, that's a stomach turning revelation.
Yes.
Like, that is despicable.
Yes.
And I think in her own twisted, disgusting way, I think her mother loved Gypsy, but again, in the way that a narcissist might know love, just for personal gain.
Dee Dee was sick. Probably from day one that she was born. Dee Dee was sick.
So that's crazy. All right.
So, I mean,
good riddance to bad rubbish. There
right?
you go. And
so,
good luck. Well,
maybe
Gypsy
in a
Rose.
couple of years we could follow up on what happens.
Let's get Gypsy Rose on the podcast. Let's have her be on the podcast and actually explain some stuff. That'd be cool.
In 2024, and we can have her visit.
I mean, I'd welcome her in the studio. Not her boyfriend, just her.
Well, no, he's spending life in prison, so yeah, no.
No. Whatever new boyfriend she comes in with,
gosh.
like he has to wait outside.
None. Yeah, let's hope none. This is a classic case of you get out of a bad relationship and you need to have that time apart and a time where you give yourself healing and you don't start dating right away. And this is one of those. She probably needs a few years of let's not start dating right away.
I'm sure.
But I mean, how can you really take control of that without controlling that? So I mean, her family can encourage her, her doctors can encourage her, because I'm sure she's gonna have, when she gets out of her own
willing to bet she never
team.
goes to a Christian dating site again.
I don't know, she might.
Farmers only. That's a thing. Farmersonly.com.
Okay, that's news to me. But I don't know, maybe in a future episode we'll have some updates on this.
Stay off Tinder, stay off Christian Mingle. I watch a lot of late night TV, y'all. I see all kinds of weird stuff.
Well, I mean, see where we.
Oh yeah, you haven't promoted you gotta.
I have this
pump
cool
out
mug. Hang on, I gotta see where it's at on the camera.
Oh, now it's on the other camera. There we go.
So, this is my cool cup that I got for the show. I don't know if you can read it very well. It says,
not really.
Yeah, bloodstains are red, ultraviolet lights are blue. I watch enough murder shows, they'll never find you.
That's creepy. Don't ever do that again in my ear.
with some cool crime scene stuff on it. So yeah, that's my cool little
I love that
accessory
thing,
for the
by the
show.
way.
It's awesome.
Super neat.
It's only 30-ounce tumbler, but it holds more like a 50-ounce.
Well, Jassel, I have to admit, this was a hell of a follow-up to last week. Like,
It really
or last
was.
episode, rather.
And you know what? And I would like to shed some light on last week's the last episode.
You did it too. Yay. I feel better.
Because Maura Murray is missing. And if you haven't seen the previous episode,
Go watch it.
Please go watch it. I'm not saying that, and this is what I've said every time I've shared it. We're not saying go watch it because we want views and we want likes and we want to, we're not saying it for that. We legit are trying to help the Murray family with finding their daughter. And if not finding their daughter, at least finding answers.
As irritated as I would be about it, if you were to copy the video and then post it, I would be irritated. You would be breaking the law, but at the same time, I'm like, no, the message needs to get out.
It does.
Like the Maura, and if the Murray family were to share the video and then like copy the video and be like, no, this is excerpts, and they would take screenshots or whatever, do it. Do it. There you go.
Get
Just
the
do
word
it.
out. We wanted to boost
fine
the
with that.
signal. That's what we're trying to do.
Only that video. Don't do any other videos. Like,
If you
not allowed.
So if you haven't seen the previous episode, please go back and watch that and get some information and share it. Share that information. Even if you're not sharing one thing or another, share her story. So that way, maybe, just maybe, we can find answers and her.
Take pictures. Put them all over your Facebook. I mean, we have the largest social media platform in the history of the planet. In the history of mankind, presumably, unless Atlantis is real, but that's a Sunday Night Madness episode. But we have this social media network in which we can reach billions of people in every single country in the world, dang near. I know there's some that are off limits, but for the most part. So do it. Take the picture. Share it on your Facebook. Hey, Maura Murray is missing. Let's do something about it.
Yes, let's.
I don't know.
So,
anyway.
well, thank you, Crazy Chris. Thank you for joining me again.
pleasure.
As always, love having you here. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I really appreciate you tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please be sure to like the video. Leave a comment if you have any ideas for anything that you'd like to see us talk about in a future episode. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel because we do way more than just Criminal Fix. We have, like you said, Sunday Night Madness and GPR and all kinds of React videos, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you subscribe, hit the bell so you don't miss out. And then also go to geekpublicradio.com. You can become a member there for only $5 a month. And you get access to live tapings, live recordings of the shows. You get access to, really just a lot, so much more. So, and again, it's only $5 a month. So geekpublicradio.com for that. And thank you. Thank you again, Crazy Chris. Thank you for joining us. Super appreciate your company. And we'll see you next time. This is Jassel from Geek Public Radio with your Criminal Fix.
Peace.